If you're a man who's doing all the right things on paper, but deep down you know there's more inside you to give, this episode is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
And start questioning, and I went through a lot of that same feeling and process, and discovered my passion and learning, my passion and desire for learning and inspiring and helping other people to feel overcome those feelings of being stuck, and to live life with a greater feeling of vision and purpose, and I guess maybe, and since we're on the Audacious podcast, audacity.
What if the thing keeping you stuck isn't a lack of talent or opportunity, but the fear of finally stepping into the life you were meant to live? This podcast is all about helping you unlock your inner greatness and live your best audacious life. Today's guest is Dean Taylor. He's a speaker, a coach whose work helps men rediscover their purpose, build better habits, and lead lives rooted in faith, vision, and legacy. On his site, Dean describes his mission as helping men break free from mediocrity and build a life aligned with purpose and values. He really was great to talk to. His fantastic insights. And what really stood out to me was, and when I think about the conversation, was Dean's story about helping clear out his father's house and finding the manuals and tools connected to a dream that never fully came to life. That moment became a mirror for his own life, and it led to our powerful conversation about purpose, fear, habits, and gratitude, and what it really means to stop settling. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Dean Taylor. Enjoy. Hey, Dean, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here, my friend. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I was thinking before the show, I love the name of your podcast. What a cool name.
Thank you. No, it's something that I've told a story about a few times, but really, so this podcast got started during the pandemic, and we all experienced that same kind of sense of loss, and we got to do something. So I figured, hey, podcasting was something I was familiar with, so let's do this. But I really wanted to be about something that mattered to me, that was important to me, and that's kind of did the sort of deep dive in myself and realized that somewhere along the line, this word audacity just sort of came out of nowhere. And I think that's always a really cool sign that it was meant to be, because you didn't plan for it; it just appeared. And then when it arrived, you're going, of course it's audacious, of course. Like, what could it be anything else? And so that's how it came to place for me. People say, "Oh, it's great marketing with your first name." I'm like, "Yeah, it's not. That wasn't planned by design, but just another indicator that I'm on the right path." And so that's how we landed here.
That's so cool. I love that.
500 plus episodes later, we're still going.
So good. So cool.
You've got a bit of a story yourself of your own journey. You are really focused on, I guess mentoring men. Is that sort of the space that you play in, if you will? Really helping them to discover, either their own visions and unlock their potential. So maybe as a starting point, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience, talk about the work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Thank you for that opportunity. Yes, I started out my career, of all places, as a nurse in a newborn intensive care unit. I did love it there. I worked there for about 7 years. I had a schedule that was really a challenging schedule with raising a young family. My wife and I were in the process of building our family. We had a growing family, and working nights and holidays and weekends, and having that rotate all the time, and 12-hour shifts and 16-hour shifts at times became a little bit more than I personally wanted. And so I started looking for, how can I have a little more stable schedule? And so I got a master's degree in it's called nursing informatics. It combined my nursing background with information technology.
Hmm.
And this is about the time when the Affordable Care Act was incentivizing hospitals to install electronic health records. And so I got hired by
Okay.
our IT department to
It's a nice
install,
marriage.
install electronic health records. So I got hired there and worked there for a while. So I've been in healthcare a long time. And and I think like a lot of men who you have some success in life, but in some ways you feel, is this really it? Is this, have I reached my potential? And start questioning. And I went through a lot of that same feeling and process
Hmm.
and discovered my passion and learning, my passion and desire for learning and inspiring and helping other people to feel overcome those feelings of being stuck and to live life with a greater feeling of vision and purpose and I guess
Love it.
maybe and since we're on the Audacious podcast, audacity.
I love it. I love it. No, I do. And, the folks in the marketing department will be happy that you dropped that plug there. So thank you for that. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's wonderful. Curious, why career fathers? Why did you make them your focus, that particular group of audience?
Yeah, I I think just because it's a group I connect with, being a father, and we have 5 children, and
Wow.
part of being a father, I wanted my kids to have better life, and I feel really connected to men who feel a lot like I did, and I've felt like I was kind of living in mediocrity, and so I thought, gosh, is this I why am I choosing to just take this feeling that's inside my chest and just sort of let fear stop me from doing the thing that I feel I'm feeling pulled to go do? And I thought,
Right.
I'm not going to do that anymore.
I'm curious, what the turning point was. Like I so again, you're talking about just you're moving through your career, and you got to that point to question, hey, is this it? Right? What
Hmm.
what was happening that got you to that point to start questioning yourself? Was there something? Was it impetus, or what was going on for you?
Ah, great question. Yeah, so and this is probably a story that a lot of people, if they haven't gone through it, they will eventually go through it. My my dad, my mom had passed away back in 2015,
Okay.
and this was about 2018. My father's health was failing and was no longer able to live on his own. And so I grew up in Oklahoma. I'm in Utah now, so I went back out to my hometown there in Oklahoma with my siblings, and we were helping clear out his house and get it ready for sale. And my dad had a dream early in his life of owning his own small engine repair business.
Okay.
And I remember when he went to the training and he had all these manuals that he brought home and he had studied them. And then he brought home or bought this little small engine that he would take apart and put back together and work on it. And so when we're clearing out his house, I came across these manuals.
Okay.
And that business for my dad never took off. And this dream, and I was so excited for him when he was doing it. I thought, wow, my dad's doing this thing he's really wanted to do. And then it just never happened, never materialized. And now here I am all these years later discovering these manuals sitting in the garage. And then I found the old engine just sitting buried under this pile of stuff in a
Oh
corner.
wow.
And we're putting all this stuff literally in a dumpster. And I thought, am I on the same path?
Hmm.
I mean, literally throwing my dad's quote unquote dream, I felt like in this dumpster.
Wow.
And that really sort of hit me. I thought, uh, what am I doing with what I felt I wanted to do and called to do? And I'm just sort of letting it slip through my fingers in a sense. And so anyway, so that was a real
That's powerful.
emotional turning point for me.
That's very, very powerful, actually. I remember once a publisher one time told me that the worst manuscript ever written is the one that's sitting on your hard drive and not going anywhere. Like it's the same sort of concept of what you explained there. Like it's like, and then again, it fits the theme of this podcast. Just go after it, right? Like you never know. I mean, the way I oftentimes frame it is, you never know where that first step will take you, but you still got to take that first step. And it'll give you one or two options, right? You're gonna either be successful, which you wanted to, so fabulous, congratulations, or you're not successful. But let's talk about that because we oftentimes call that thing not successful. We call it failure, right? But the thing is,
Mhm.
when you fail at something, it's actually fail as an acronym, first attempt in learning, right? So you've now learned something brand new, right? You've gained some insight. You probably learned how not to do it again, and then learn how to do it better. So is that really a failure? Did you really not succeed if you gained insights and lessons? I would argue and say no.
I so agree. Yeah, so agree that we look at failure as not accomplishing this thing. But man, if you learn from the experience, it is not a failure. I totally agree with that 100%. And how many, uh, and now we have three grandchildren. And one of my favorite things to do is to watch them learn. And they never let falling down or not doing something perfectly keep them from trying to do it again because they're learning how to do it
I love it.
better. And so that's one of my favorite parts about being a grandfather is just now watching them learn. And I mean, I've watched it with my own kids, but now I think with my life experience, I appreciate it a lot more.
Out of curiosity, what do you believe or what do you think held your father back?
Oh, that was a great question. I wish I could ask him. I wish he was, but if I were to think back on probably what held him back, I would say what we're talking about. I think he had a little bit of failure. It didn't really actually go the way that he thought it was. Probably his expectation is the way he thought it was going to all be. Maybe it was a
Right.
little more difficult and challenging than he thought it was going to be to launch and start this thing, and had some failure. And I think just knowing my dad, it was probably one of those things he thought, well, okay, I wasn't successful, and so now it didn't work out, and he just kind of let
Right.
it go.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. No, very curious. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, you don't have the opportunity to ask, but be very curious to see what was it, and because I
Yeah.
think sometimes when you look at the root causes of stuff, there really aren't issues, right? There's this limiting belief of stuff that we didn't think was possible or we thought had to go a certain way. I was just having a conversation with someone the other day about limiting beliefs, and so the example they were giving was talking about this little girl that used to watch her mother make turkey. And what she used to do is break the wings off the side of the pot. And when they put the turkey in the oven, they put the wings beside it, the turkey wings. And it was a practice that she saw her mother do. And so she started to adopt that. And then, her daughter saw her do the same. And then one day her daughter said, why you take off the turkey wings? And she goes, oh, that's how my mom did it. Well, when she started that process of uncovering, they went back to the mother and the grandmother now. And the reason why she did that was because the pot was too small, right? And so that's why they broke the wings because it wouldn't fit. Well, so there's these things that we adopt or we believe or we think. We don't know where they come from. We don't know the origin of it. So the pot was too small. Okay, cool. Get a bigger pot. Now you can. Maybe she couldn't at that time. Now you can. So, and not to say that things are planted with like with intent of bringing negativity to our lives. Maybe it's very realistic for that moment, right? Not that there isn't
Mhm.
negativity that happens, so that's another part of it. But there are things that are innocently placed in us that become our beliefs that we adopt, that form habits, become actions, and it becomes a way of life. And so kind of leads me to my question is the role of habits, how what role do habits play in living that purpose driven life that you're pushing your clients towards?
Oh gosh, that is a very insightful question. Yeah, habits. And I'll share with you a habit that I have implemented in my life.
Hmm.
And maybe have you heard the book The Miracle Morning? Hal
No.
Elrod.
Oh.
Yeah, Hal Elrod wrote the book The Miracle Morning, and I read that book several years
Oh,
ago.
yes, Elrod. Yes, 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 yes. I just
And
see the last name again. Yes.
I was reading the book, and he talked about it just smacked me in the face. a little bit because he was talking about, and he used the word mediocrity, and I just, for whatever reason, that just hit me, and as I was reflecting on my own life, and one of the things that, well, in the book, he talks about a routine, a morning routine,
Hmm.
and he calls it the savers. So S is for silence, A is for affirmation, V is for visualization, E is for exercise, R is for reading, and then the last S is scribing or journaling. So I thought, well, what the heck? I'm going to try a couple of these things out and see what it does for me.
Hmm.
So I began to just write in a journal. I thought, well, I can write. So I started just keeping a journal daily, just writing some thoughts in it. And also visualizing. I thought I love thinking about things and imagining things in my mind.
Yep.
And so I did that for a week and a half, 2 weeks. But I just doing that small thing for those few days, I began to notice how I felt differently when I woke up in the morning and how I showed up in my family and in work and the things that I was involved in. Just I began to feel more confident. And so I thought, well, gosh, if I'm doing this well with just a couple of things, what if I tried to do all four of the other things that he mentioned? And so I began this practice of doing the miracle morning, and it has changed my life. Just having a small routine, and it doesn't take. Sometimes you could think, oh my gosh, how am I going to do all these things in my morning?
Right.
I just wake up a few minutes earlier. Sometimes I'll spend a half an hour. Sometimes it's depending on the day, it's 10 minutes. But my intentionality in starting off my day differently and with more focus and intention and purpose has really shifted the way I do everything. And so I've done this habit for the last almost 2.5 years, and it has just been, yeah, life changing. So the power of habits is it's real, and that's my own experience with implementing a
Gotcha.
habit in my life that's changed how I wake up and show up every day.
So I gotta ask, what are these things that you're doing in the morning? I'm curious.
Oh, well, for some people, for me, I'm a man of faith. I use my silence. Prayer is my silence in the morning, so that's
Mm,
my silent time. So I wake up. The first thing I do is I say a prayer, and then I do write some affirmations, or I've written out affirmations, and so I'll recite those either out loud or in my head. If I have something big coming up, or not even big, just visualizing for a moment, what's my day going to be like and what do I want to accomplish? And so I'll just think
right.
about those things. Uh, I do like to run, so sometimes running will be part of my exercise. On days that I don't go out and run, I'll maybe just roll out of bed and do a few push-ups and then I read. I like to read, so reading. And for me also, I'll spend a little time reading scripture in the morning, and then I will just write in my journal for a few minutes. I'll just write, and specifically, well, one of the a practice that I've developed is writing about gratitude. Just taking, we probably all heard of this, taking a few things that you're grateful for and writing about them. So I'll write a few things about different aspects of my life, what I'm grateful for and why I'm grateful for them, and then I'll try to do one thing that day that to show my gratitude for that thing that I've written about.
Mm. And I think the fact that you've sustained them for as long as you have really speaks to how impactful they are. Because I mean, after a while, and I would also guess, and you can tell me that you're seeing the results of these things because you can do something for so long, but if you're not seeing any of the returns, you sort of lose that energy. But the fact that you sustain it tells me, or suggests to me
Yeah.
rather, that you are seeing the positive benefits of that. And I'm wondering if you could sort of maybe describe what you started to see once you kept this habit up.
Yeah. Well, I like I said, the confidence that I felt internally, and even more than that, it's the joy that I feel and just in
Mm,
daily life, the things that used to really, I know would have frustrated me or caused me to feel or kind of shrink or even would have upset me. They just, they don't have that effect on me
I
as
love
much
it.
anymore. Like I feel I'm more able to deal with life's challenges. And one of the things that I have seen in a lot of people and I hear a lot about is people just feel burnt out. And I don't, not that I don't ever feel those feelings, but how long they stay with me is I'm better able to just not be in that space for very long. And I think
Right.
that's one of the biggest benefits I felt is not that, I mean, we're all human, we have emotion, things happen, but they don't affect me for as long as they used to. I don't stay in that space of, we kind of mentioned earlier, a negative space for very long.
Right. 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 And I can relate to
That's
that.
been the
I
biggest
just
shift for me.
and I can relate to that. I'm very, very similar where something will happen and it's like, okay, and I go into problem solving mode. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is this and how can I do this? What does it look like? And looking for that opportunity within this mishap. And I think the more you do of something, so i.e. like a habit, the more you do of it, the more natural it becomes. So if you create a habit of not staying in a negative space as an example, right? That can help you. I know for me, and I'll ask, your thoughts, but I think for me what I found, it's taking that time to know the things that fuel me, that I enjoy, that gets me excited, because when these moments of down happen, and they are going to happen, life's like hills and valleys, right? There's going to be hills and be the valleys, and I think it's incumbent on us to do everything we possibly can to get out of that valley as quickly as we can, because on the top of the hill it's great, everyone's celebrating and happy and joyous, and so that's why it's so important to know the things that bring you that joy and happiness. So if you're feeling kind of bad, oops, because that way, if you're feeling kind of bad, you go to those things. And even if it gives you a quick shot in the arm for that moment, that's cool, because it is quite possible to feel down or feel happy rather during down times. It's very possible. Like you, while you can't
Hmm.
be happy and sad at the same time, you can experience moments of happiness during sad times. And so, it's how do you continually expand those moments so they override the bad times?
Yep, yep, exactly. I love your analogy of the ups and downs of the peaks and the valleys. And for me, I feel like that's just sort of smoothed out. I mean, I do have peaks and valleys, but the valleys aren't as deep
Yeah.
as they once were, or I don't feel that the impact, I guess, is what I'm feeling.
Yep.
It's that the impact isn't as profound as they once were.
How has gratitude helped with that, or practicing gratitude?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. Gratitude for me is, well, I think gratitude is a way of just shifting my mind to seeing the abundance of life, that I have way more things in my life than I used to. I didn't appreciate them, and I recognized I didn't appreciate them, and or I wasn't grateful for them because I didn't have this feeling. I was taking them for granted, and so I began to realize that I have so many things. This just an example. We have a little gym in our downstairs basement.
Okay.
I was downstairs working out, and I thought how grateful I am that I have fingers that can grip a bar and allow me to just hold on to it and lift it up, and that I have a functioning brain and nerves that communicate with my muscles that allow me to have that freedom of movement, and how grateful I felt just that I could actually get up on my own, independent, and walk downstairs and do exercise for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And just even being grateful for, so my point in sharing that is this, there's all, sometimes we think, well, what do I have to be grateful for? And I've been learning as I've been doing this practice, I have so many things to be grateful for, just little things like that.
Hmm.
And it just helped me to realize that I live an abundant life and I have an abundance of things in my life, even the air that I breathe. So it's just those things like that have helped me to realize we all live an abundant life. It's
We
all
do.
around us.
We do. We do. I'd love to hear maybe a story of one of your clients maybe that you've kind of offered, given some guidance or coached, or assisted them to whether it be find their passion or live their potential or get to a better place. Do you have an illustration you can share?
Absolutely. Yeah. So someone I've worked with, and this goes to the idea of living our potential and how often we'll say, well, I just saw it on a billboard the other day, kids who said kids have potential. And I don't totally agree with that.
Yeah.
We all have potential.
Yes.
And in talking with this specific father I'm thinking about, he was sharing with his own child about, well, you can you should be living your dream and you can become anything you want. And he said it smacked him right in the face when his son said, well, Dad, are you living yours?
I love it.
And so he said it helping him discover his own purpose and the vision that he's had for his own life has been so satisfying. And one of the things that uh, and it's been something I've done in my own life, I try to help other men do, is to think about some stories in their lives that have been the most impactful and meaningful, and reflect on why those stories have impacted them and why they're so meaningful and why they hold on to those stories, and then spending a little time once you have those stories, reflecting and uh, on those stories, and then being able to then think about and just you can just draft out a purpose statement,
Hmm.
just a draft, and then to share that with someone who is a trusted friend or a mentor in your life, because they'll help you uncover some themes that you won't necessarily see because you're kind of too close to it.
Right.
And once you kind of have that, then and I talk about purpose because purpose is uh, it's like the fuel for the vision.
Yep.
And once you have this, another analogy I love to use is that a vision is like when we all carry these things in our hands,
Yes.
phones,
Yes.
and they have this little thing in them called a GPS. But that GPS isn't very useful if it doesn't have an address. And for me, that's how vision is. Vision is the address, and the purpose is a fuel that's going to get me to that address.
And it's so important to have it. I think what that sort of goes back to is um, so people sort of wandering around not knowing what their true purpose is or understanding that they have a purpose, or even sometimes limiting their purpose because of their circumstance. So, for example, let's use the client group you work with, career fathers, right? Like they're if you are so you establish yourself in this career and you know this well, right? This is part of your story, and but you know that there's a passion that you what you're doing and you're not passionate about. It's a job you do, but what you're really passionate about is way over on the other side, around the corner, which isn't where you're at. The whole idea of getting there without the GPS is difficult, right? And so
Right?
that kind of goes to what you help. And so, what would sort of the biggest challenge, or maybe some challenges, be for those career fathers that are trying to get around the corner to the other side?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a little bit earlier too. We talked about limiting beliefs and how
Mm,
sometimes these beliefs get ingrained in our minds and our heads because of past experience or past failures. I think another challenge is, and our brains are wired this way, our brains are wired for survival. And so when we're doing something that feels unfamiliar, or a lot of people will call it your comfort zone, and when you're on the edge of that area of familiarity, it will feel a little fearful, a little scary. and when you're wanting to go in that direction, that the vision, the thing that you want to achieve, and if it were, and if we were going to get there, if all the steps were going to be logical, we would already have all been doing it. But it's not always logical, and the dots will connect. Looking back, they don't really ever connect looking forward, and
No.
so when we're at that edge of our familiarity, that's where we got to have exercise some faith and take a step. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. But as we do that, that area of familiarity will continue to expand. And so the things that we used to feel, say, were unfamiliar. I mean, I'm sure just like you with when you think back on your very first time doing a podcast,
Oh yeah.
right? It maybe probably felt a little unfamiliar and a little scary, but now it's second nature. It's something that you have
Just
so much
do.
experience, and it's it's to tell someone else who's never done a podcast, you would say, "Oh, you can share all kinds of feelings with them and experience and the growth that you've experienced and other people." That's I think the another thing that holds people back is just so they feel like, "Oh, this feels scary. It's not familiar, so therefore I'm going to retreat back, and now I'm back in this comfort zone, and so it feels good, and so now I'm safe, and so
Yeah.
this thing I was going to do must not have been right."
Yep, and you're so right. Like it really just goes back to that first step. Like you gotta take that first step. You don't know where it's going to go. You know, there's a Martin Luther King Jr. quote that talks about taking that step when you can't see the entire staircase, but you step anyways. You don't know where it'll go, and that's where the audacity comes in. And
Yeah.
so I love the fact that you brought that up. I also, very much appreciated your point around, how the dots connect. I oftentimes say that, when you live life forward, it's an art, but when you stop and look back, it's a science. And you can see that in order for me to go here, I had to go here and I had to go there to get me to this place where I'm at now. And if I didn't do those things, if those things didn't fall in line, who knows where I'd be, right? And so,
Right.
there's a certain, but even with that, there's a certain element of just trust that you're making the right decision with what you know in that moment. Yeah, just trust that everything falls in your favor, and so I think that's another a big element of that. Now you've got some experience in sort of real estate, right? And that kind of was a bit of a gateway to your passions, or your purpose, or discovering your purpose rather. Can you sort of elaborate just a bit, just for our listeners?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I we talk about failures, and we talk about learning and having experience. It was one of those I always when I've been to conferences or even growing up, anything that I always I loved when I would be inspired and I would hear someone on stage speaking. And so I thought, I want to do that. But I always thought to myself, well, I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough of this. I don't have a story for this or that. And so I just would set that aside. So I had this idea and I thought, well, okay, flipping houses was something that was kind of popular in UCC shows. And I kind of thought,
Sure.
well, I could do that. And I did. I did a few of those. I made some money. I lost some money. But along the way, kind of what my thought was, well, this will be my gateway to being able to be on stage and speak and share successful
Hmm.
stories. And then I realized as we talked about, there's peaks and valleys. Uh, but then I began to realize through that process of just taking a step, the connection there was I I trusted myself to take a step, and
Yep.
I realized, but there's this other thing that's been calling at my heart. And now I just know I have the confidence if I just take a step in this direction that I can do this thing that I really have felt called to do. And so that's kind of the connection there. And uh, so that's kind of how as strange as that may sound, that's how that connection was made in my mind.
And so then you took that step, and then it unlocked something bigger than you thought imagined.
Yeah, it was one of those dots that I look back now I can make the connection, but I didn't connect it at the time because
Yeah.
I was being led to the thing that I really felt passionate about.
Kind of how I talked about at the beginning about this podcast. It was just led there, and it just there's a part of it though is that you've got to be accepting. I think for a lot of people, the idea of not knowing, that uncertainty, that unknown, is enough for people not to do anything. Some are scared
Right.
of it. Some will jump into it. Some will say, "Hey, let's try it anyways." Some will just say, "Nah, if I don't know what's on the other side of that corner, I ain't going." Right. And so,
Yeah.
being able to fight past that and take that risk, take that chance, having the courage, being audacious, these things are key in sort of unlocking our potential.
So true, 100%. Another analogy is something I think about is if we're driving in the dark, our lights are going to shine a certain distance,
Yep.
but because we can't see past the light doesn't mean we shouldn't keep going. We're always going to drive to the end of the light.
Yes.
So we just
Love
keep
that.
we keep driving.
I like that. Driving the end of the light. I like that. I like that. Okay, so we're talking about this here. What advice would you give someone who's kind of feeling stuck or feeling that in that place of mediocrity and they're not having that progress, they're not feeling excited about what they're doing? What would you suggest? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I'll circle back on again on purpose. And one of the things that I have definitely and I'm continuing to learn. I always try to say I'm learning because I don't feel like I'm ever at the end of my learning.
Mm,
But one thing I've definitely am learning and discovering is that if being really clear on my values and understanding what those values are, and then aligning my values and my desires, because what I'm continuing to learn is that if my desires are out of alignment with my values are always going to win out.
got you.
And so often people feel stuck because what they're going after, what they're desiring isn't lining up with where their value. And so when your values and your desires are in alignment, and then you couple that and add into that your strengths, when you get all those things lined up, then you start feeling like you're in this flow state and you're no longer feeling like you're butting up against the wall. So that feeling of being stuck can
Mhm.
often be because what I'm desiring is not lining up with what my true values.
Got you. Got you. So it's again being clear on those values. And I think it really goes back having a strong sense of self and who you are and what
Mhm.
you're after. I think that's kind of where the work starts. And and maybe
Yeah.
I'm minimizing it, but I think once you have that piece, everything kind of falls into place.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
true.
Um, I guess I'm curious, how has your approach um to fatherhood change as you kind of embrace that purpose and vision, right? Because I would imagine that there'll be some, not say impacts, but well, maybe impact is the right word. Maybe there's some changes, some other aspects of your life that would change when your vision is repurposed.
Yeah. One of the things that's always been important to me as a father is the the example to my children and
Hmm.
now to my grandchildren. I've thought a lot about legacy and what legacy really means. And for me, legacy isn't just about what I've accomplished, but it's about the ripple effect of what I've left behind
Yeah.
for those who are coming behind me, my family. And so my goal in having in this legacy and this the way it's changed and changed me and what I want is I want that ripple effect to be not just here in my children, but now my grandchildren and their children. And I think that ripple effect is possible. And to me, that's what legacy is about. Now that's how it's changed my approach to life and fatherhood and the legacy that I'm hoping to leave for my family.
I love it. I love it. If I mean, Dean, if someone wanted to start today and and they say, look, I got to make this happen. I guess I wanted to go back to that 30-minute power morning, and what would that look like? Well, how do you shape that? What does that look like for that individual who wants to start today?
Oh yeah. Well, when you asked that question, one of the first quotes that came to my mind was from the coach Don Shula. He said, "It's the start that stops most people."
Hmm.
And I've loved that quote because sometimes it's just just the start. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And just for me, it's not, I mean, someone could hear this and go, oh, well, he's done this for 2.5 years. It's not about perfection. It's about progress.
Mhm.
So even if it's not exactly the way you envisioned it, I would just start.
Right.
And and that's, to me, that's part of the joy in the process of learning is when you start something and it doesn't turn out exactly right. Well, I've learned and now I've grown, and it's an experience and it's a story,
Yeah.
and I can just make it better. And I love the idea that my yesterday doesn't have to determine today.
No.
And but my day, what I do today will determine my tomorrow. And so that's what I would share with someone who's feeling this, where do I start? I would just start.
Love it. I love it. Be audacious and just get going and start, right? That's what it is. That's what we try to encourage here. Dean, this is so awesome. For listeners that wanted to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Oh, thank you. My website is deantaylorofficial.com. They can also find me on Instagram at deantaylorofficial. And those are places that we could connect and people can find me.
Good. And we'll make sure that the contact details are in the show notes below. Dean, this has been awesome. Really appreciate the time. Love the insights and love the perspective. And congratulations on all the great work. And thanks for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Well, I feel it's such an honor. Thank you for having me. What a great time. What a great start to the day. We're in the morning time for anyone that might be listening. And so it's a great way to start the day. So thank you for having me.
Maybe this could be like a 30-minute power routine. Is that what
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. That's great, Dean. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. I gotta say, so appreciated Dean for being here and loved his insights. So again, thank you for taking the time. If you're someone who's been feeling stuck, uninspired, or maybe even quietly frustrated with where you are in life, today's conversation is a reminder that clarity often begins with honesty. Dean talked about how his purpose is the fuel, really, and the vision is the destination, and the habits are often the bridge between where you are and where you want to go. What really stayed with me was the story, again, Dean's father and his unfinished dream. There was something deeply human about that moment, because I think of a lot of people are carrying dreams and ideas or callings they've been sitting on for far too long. And sometimes it just takes that moment to wake us up and remind us that we don't want to leave this life wondering what could have been and all of the what ifs. Sometimes the life you want begins with one honest look forward. It's time for an audacious insight, a quick look at something happening in the real world that reflects the power of bold thinking and intentional action. When Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson opened up publicly about his battles with depression, he challenged one of the most persistent beliefs men carry, that strength means staying silent. At the height of his success, he chose to speak honestly about his struggles, reminding millions of men that emotional pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. His willingness to be vulnerable created a space for others to confront their own struggles and start having conversations they've been avoiding. Because the moment you face what's inside you is the moment you take back your power. Please make sure to connect with Dean Taylor directly. He's doing some really meaningful work helping men live greater clarity, purpose, and gratitude, as well as thinking about their legacy. And you can learn more about him at his website, deantaylorofficial.com. We'll have that in the show notes for you as always. His website describes his work as mentoring faith-driven men to lead boldly and build lives of legacy. And of course, if this conversation resonated with you, share with someone who needs to hear it. Be sure to follow the podcast. And if you haven't already, leave a review. It helps us keep bringing these kinds of conversations to more people. Thank you so much for the time. And as always, live life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, Stay gracious, that's greatness. Be audacious.